Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Second Tuesday seminar, The Importance of ChromaChecking Printers Before Purchasing. And as always, please ask any questions through the chat. And this presentation is really geared toward the people within your organization that are making buying decisions for printers. So even if you give them the first 10 minutes of this presentation, I think it'll be helpful for both you and your organization because the, the idea of purchasing a printer using scientific metrics provided by ChromaChecker makes so much sense. And so many customers have seen such a huge benefit from doing this. But before we get into today's topic, I want to bring up some other ChromaChecker activities, such as we have an upcoming event at an event called Engage 360. It's the day before Printing United show in October. I'm actually presenting on the 6 key trends for printing today and how color conformance is critical to all 6 trends. Look forward to that presentation. Maybe making it to a second Tuesday in the November-December timeframe. We'll also be at the Printing United show, booth 4268. Please go to our events page on the ChromaChecker website to set up an appointment with us. We book up quick. And at the show, if you've ever seen us, we're always really crowded. So if you slot a time, you will be seen at that time. You won't have to wait. So hope to see you there. And then our Color Conformance Conference, I think this is 4th year in Newport Richey. We've got it for the first week of February this year, so February 3rd through the 5th. So hope you all turn out for that. And we're looking for input. We've got a couple great speakers lined up already and new topics that are quite exciting. Now, in regard to the ChromaChecker platform, some recent improvements include our sales registry, which you find underneath the main admin menu with the human head on it. You'll see the printer sales registry. Please, guys, sign your company up for this. This allows us to give your name to print buyers and brand companies that are asking for ChromaChecker printers. Many brand companies like Lob came to us and said, we're tired of assessing how printers are printing on our own. We know if they use ChromaChecker, we know what their E factor is, the expectation factor for printing match to Grackle, and we know immediately if they meet our needs. So can you just tell us who your printers are? And due to regulations and privacy, we can't unless you sign up for the printer sales registry. So please go ahead and do that. And we now have ChromaChecker users, printers, who are saying, hey, my indigos are full in capacity. I need someone else with an indigo who's printing to the E factor that we're printing to, let's say 3. Who else is in the ChromaChecker network so I can publish a project to and have them offload work? And so again, this is a sales opportunity for your company to sign up for this. Next, we have our packaging inspector that we've been working on. And if you'll notice, we've added an analogs inspector within ChromaChecker. If you go to your tools, it's about 3rd from the bottom, and it's shown over on the right screen. And what the analogs inspector does is allows you to define all the characteristics of your analogs, and then it databases into your projects. So on the left, we've got a screen from ChromaChecker Capture, which shows the details of a given job of what ink is in which ink station of the press and what the analogs is for each of the colors. So if, let's say, you're running cyan and for whatever reason, you're not getting to the density that you need to, it could be the analogs is dirty, and you see you're at a 2.95, well, if you go to your analogs inventory and get a 3.05 or a 3.1, that should get you to the density you need. So this is a new capability built into the packaging inspector, which will be rolling out shortly. It's already in beta. Some of you guys are already testing it, so thank you for that. And of course, all of the setup required for this type of job can come from your ESCO system and some other IS systems that can export essentially an XML file with all the job information in it. So it pre-populates and captures. So there's no setup needed by the operator. It's all done on the fly. So very exciting things having to do with our packaging inspector. And then I told you last month about our new artificial intelligence module, which is built into ChromaChecker. It went live today. So this new module is working today, and it's today primarily targeted toward tech support and troubleshooting. So if you have a tech support issue or troubleshooting question, you can ask the artificial intelligence agent how to do a certain thing, and ideally it'll tell you how to do it. Now, we've been training it for the last couple months. It's not fully trained yet, so it's only going to get better. Understand it's learning, and it's available in 20 languages. And you can look forward to modules in the future which will actually help solve print issues, meaning theoretically, as we have collect data and we know that your indigo is not printing a certain way, the AI agent can come back and say, hey, this is a pip issue, change your pip on your indigo. So that's coming, but right now it's available in this troubleshooting mode. And I'm going to flip out of my presentation and actually go to ChromaChecker to show you how this works. You'll see the icon in the bottom right corner. And if I click on that icon, and let's say I have a specific question like, how do I add a new operator for capture? And we'll say, okay. And then it's thinking, it's reviewing the database, it's reviewing what and by the way, I haven't tested this before, it's my first time doing it. And it's saying, okay, in general, here are the steps to add a new operator. Go to the accountability inspector. This is where you manage users and permissions. Staff tab, within the accountability, navigate staff tab, create a new account, look for an add user or similar button. You'll need to provide their name, login credentials, assign permissions to what they can do, and then assign them to a team if you want them to have the same capabilities as other people to make it easier. It's all right here. So that fast, answers at your fingertips, step-by-step directions on how to do it. So we're very excited about our new artificial intelligence agent, and I'm gonna tease you with this some more in a few minutes. But now let's get into our topic for today, which is don't buy a printer before you benchmark it, and why you want to perform a ChromaChecker benchmark, the benefits of a ChromaChecker benchmark, showing you actual results. And then today we're going to talk specifically about large format. But next month, I think we're going to do narrow format digital. And then the following months, based on input, we might do sheet fed and screen, flexo, some other technologies for print. Now, the beauty of this is, as we populate our database, which we've already populated it quite a bit, we can use common metrics for any print technology, meaning what is the gamut of my flexo press running 7 colors? What's the gamut of my offset press running 4 colors? What's the gamut of my Epson or my Indigo? What's the resolution of these printers? So for the first time, we're building a quality set of metrics that are cross-industry compatible. So all this talk about when digital is better than conventional or conventional is better than digital, we're going to lay it all out in this benchmarking. And if you participate and upload data, you'll be able to see this information as well. So I encourage you to share this with your company decision makers, because everyone's bought a printer that didn't meet expectations. And everyone's had problems with new printers being installed or used printers being installed and trying to argue with the installers that something's not right or the color's not right or the registration isn't right. Um, so the benchmarking will help in all these things. And in fact, the ability to offload your work from one printer to another and know that it's acceptable. And probably most important here is when you bring a new printer in, you want to make sure it can offload work from your existing printers. There's certain printers that just do not correlate with other printers. For instance, not picking on any manufacturer here, but if you take an Indigo and from HP and a Xerox iGen, those two printers can both be made through color management to match Grackle to within a 3E factor. But when you do this, there's still 6E factor different from one another. So think of the Indigo in the 3 o'clock position of a clock and the iGens in the 9 o'clock position. So yeah, they're both 3 to Grackle, but they're 6 to one another. And if you know ChromaChecker and you've been watching our seminars, you know that anything more than 4.5, 50% of print buyers will not accept. So this comes down to crossing your fingers that if you're doing the same job off an Indigo and an iGen, you're crossing your fingers that the customer is not going to reject it. And you can't afford to cross your fingers hoping the customer's not going to reject it because waste is too big of an issue. It's what's killing the profitability of our printing industry. Our printing industry, 75% of the printers are working off of a 2% margin on sales, which means if you lose $200, just $200 on a job, you take the $200 and divide it by 0.02, that's $4,000 of additional sales that have to be made to overcome that loss. Meaning you can do a $4,000 sale and it doesn't help. It only helps you get break even. It doesn't help you make money. This is critical to understanding the importance of ChromaChecker in your organization. And when you're buying new printers, it becomes all the more important. Um, Other big things are ink was more expensive than expected for the desired quality. I have a customer who bought production inkjet printers to do a job for Verizon on 6 printers in 6 different locations. And they bought the printer based on the speed and the print quality that they thought it was the lowest speed that the highest speed the printer could do, which means the least amount of ink. And they gave Verizon the job, and Verizon said, no, unacceptable. Our logo color is red, not orange. So luckily, they owned ChromaChecker, and we were able to help them with their consultant remotely profile all 6 printers to a higher ink setting, which Verizon did accept, and get all 6 printers aligned remotely. And we're able to pull off the job for Verizon to their expectations. But then it came back that the printer spent more money on the job than they expected. So they bid the job wrong because it used a higher level of ink and the printer had to run slower. And the printer was a little upset. And it's like, don't shoot the messenger. You should have known this ahead of time. You should have known what the gamut was of the printer at that fast speed setting that the vendor sold you on, so you could understand based on your customers' requirements for quality whether or not you could run it at that fastest speed or if you had to slow it down. So key concept here, and the benchmark gives you the ability to benchmark that printer at the different settings. So you know the gamut at the fast setting, you know the gamut at the slow setting, and you can better figure out whether or not this printer is going to meet your needs. Rip driver was not accurate for spot colors. Same customer had some large format printers, and they were trying to do Verizon on the large format, but the rip they had bought didn't support named colors for spots. So when the PDF came in with the Verizon red in it, it couldn't distinguish the Verizon red and call out the right CMYK for that printer versus that printer, because they would render two different CMYKs. So the net result would be the same because no printer prints CMYK the same way. So the lookup table accommodates the difference between every printer and optimizes that Verizon color so it's right on every printer and it matches. But since their RIP didn't have that setting, they couldn't do that. So they had to buy a supplemental color server to do that process, which if they had done this homework before, they wouldn't have had to do this. The other key thing with this benchmark is that you can't afford as a printer to bring a new printer on and not have it printing production from day one. Most people will get a new printer in and then spends 2-3 weeks in research and development in terms of figuring out how to profile it and how to set it up and how it aligns with the other print. Why don't you know that ahead of time? If you give these files to the vendor to let the vendor print the files and then you measure them, or give them to us to measure, which we'll talk about later, you can establish all these things ahead of time. So when that printer gets installed, you know how to configure it and it can start printing money the day it hits the floor. Isn't that a much more enticing way to get a printer on your production line? This is why management needs to see this. They need to understand this. And so it's super easy. You provide the vendors with specific PDFs and instructions on how to print the PDF. Here's our large format PDF. Easy instructions, print it. Print it through your normal color workflow environment to show the printer in its best condition. Now, this PDF comes in different sizes, and you'll want to set a size up based on the imaging area of the large format device that you're printing. And then once it's printed, you can then measure it or you can farm it out. Now, these reports that ChromaChecker makes tells you what the precision is, meaning how consistent is the printer across the page? Is the roll or is the flatbed even? Is the head even based on where it is on the flatbed? These all come out with the precision, and that's just within page. But with ChromaCheck, you'll also check between page precision and between jobs, which is really critical because people will often ask, how often do I need to recalibrate? Or how often do I need to do a new G7 curve or even a new ICC profile? By tracking this precision to understand what's normal about this large format device versus that large format device, it answers all these questions about when you need to reprofile or when you need to recurve. In addition, ChromaChecker will calculate how accurate each printer is to Grackle. And we actually include this graphic in the PDF. So this graphic, which if you have our starter kit with our E-factor exercise or our ISO 15339 exercise, this shows us, I actually cut it out of the bottom part of the page and I measured it, and it's a 12 E-factor to Grackle. So this printer is not very close to Grackle. Well, if someone doesn't know what 12 E-factor is, then you go to your ISO 15339 kit here, which is $99. And there's a sheet in there called Master. This Master matches Grackle. So as long as you've protected these and kept them in the dark enclosure and they haven't faded, you can then take the master and compare it to the printer and say, hey, this is how the printer we're looking at is performing. It's a 12. This is 0, if you will, the master. And so you can see how far off it is. Now, you can do this with all your printers. So for instance, I have different prints of these on like a HP Indigo and a Konica Minolta, and you can see one's a 4.1. So now you can say, oh, that's a 4.1 to Grackle and compared to the 12. And now color, it makes sense. People can make this adjustment. And what's even more important, not only can you tell how close each printer is to Grackle, but how close is this new printer I'm looking at buying to my existing HP Indigo. And ChromaChecker will tell you, and I'll show you this in a few minutes, that's let's say 10 E factor. And so again, knowing how E factor works, at 4.5 E factor or higher, 50% of the print buyers will not accept it. So at 3 E factor and lower, almost every print buyer accepts it. So if you can get your printers to match one another to within 3, you don't have to cross your fingers that the customer is not going to reject it for the most part. You always have that one or two customer who is uneducated and doesn't realize that they can't have a perfect match every time. But ideally, you're doing your education and helping them with that. We can help you with that too. But this is key for ChromaChecker. Now, the ISO gamut size is another capability of our benchmark. And if the if the vendor is printing the file color managed, they have the profile for that printer and substrate. So they can give you that profile, you load it into ChromaChecker, and ChromaChecker from that data will calculate the gamut size and the percentage of Pantone spot colors that can be reproduced on that printer within 2 delta E, which is quite useful. And then lastly, we have this target here, which is a contrast resolution target, which is quite useful. So that we have found that even though a vendor might say it's 600 DPI, two printers that are both 600 DPI look different. And this will show that difference and help you understand which one's better. Now, all of this information can be put in a report form and tied to your PO. So when you decide, okay, I'm going to buy printer C because I like how it aligns with my printers the best, and it has a nice gamut and it can make Verizon red, which we need for Verizon, and et cetera. You can put this in a PO as criteria necessary for you to make payment on the printer after it's installed in your shop. Now, I know vendors are going to hate me for saying this, but you as a print service provider should love me for saying this, because you'll never have arguments over when the product is installed, whether or not it's meeting your expectations, because you're proving with ChromaChecker that it's meeting the demonstrated capabilities that they showed you before you purchased it. Why wouldn't you want to do this? It's really simple. So instead of making purchasing decisions based on which vendor had the best looking demonstration room, true story, I did a LinkedIn post to ask what were the silliest reasons people bought printers. You can make it based on scientific principles. And in this way, you can quantify the level of color match to your existing printers. You can quantify the level of drift, meaning the amount of maintenance it's going to take to keep that device consistent. You'll know upfront the accuracy level to whatever your reference aim is. Could be Grackle, could be something else. It tells you what the range of color that printer can make to hit important brand colors, metrics to hold the installers accountable, and then the ability to do trade-off between speed and color quality, as I talked about. So ChromaChecker can be used to benchmark any print technology, and we're documenting this print technology and putting it all together in a centralized ChromaChecker account that will allow you to look at data that other people have already benchmarked. It's the first time that we're providing an industry assessment using the same color quality metrics for all print technologies. Because print manufacturers, they tell you the meters per minute and they tell you all this type of stuff, but they don't tell you what the color accuracy is to Grackle. They don't tell you what the color consistency is to itself. They don't tell you the percentage of spot colors that you can match. So we're doing this for you and on behalf of the manufacturers. So we'll have a database of all different printers on all different substrates, helping you understand which print combination can attain the condition that you need to match your existing printers and be the most efficient printer you can be. So we already have information in our database that shows whether or not the printer is inconsistent and inaccurate, or consistent and inaccurate, or accurate but not real consistent, or the best is consistent and accurate, precise and accurate. So these are the four metrics that the benchmarking tells you. Here's kind of what it looks like within ChromaChecker. So you'll see I've got a Canon Colorado and a Fuji Acuity, and you can see we're documenting the gamut size, the number of percentage of PMS colors that are capable of being rendered within 2 delta E. And then the next is the within page uniformity, and the Canon Colorado is a 0.6, the Acuity has a 1. Those are very close. I would not make a decision of one over the other based on that. They're both very good printers, but when you see a printer with a 2 or 3 in this column, and again, it comes down to what you need. If you're a super high quality printer and you're trying to keep everything within a 3E factor, then this becomes important. If you're a medium level printer and your customers don't demand that high of quality, and you're not charging a high amount for your work, and you're doing everything maybe around a 5, well, then these numbers scale, because you do get what you pay for the most part. Even though printers don't advertise it, typically the more expensive the printer, the better these numbers are. All right. And then lastly is the accuracy. And you can see both are very accurate. The Canon Colorado is at 2.4 to Grackle. The Acuity is 1.4 to Grackle, which is insane. That's really close. But we really want to know what they are to one another. So by clicking on them both and then doing a compare, we can see that they're 4.7 to one another. So even though both printers are super accurate, you can see the graphic, the bullseye, the green bullseye is Grackle. The Fuji is 2.4 rings from the bullseye. The Canon's 4.3 rings from the bullseye. And to one another, that red line is 4.7 E factor. Well, 4.7 E factor, again, if you've followed us, you know that over 50% of the customers will not accept a 4.5. And so this is a situation, again, where you're crossing your fingers and you're saying, oh, I hope they accept it. And if they don't, it goes in the bin, and you've just had waste that you have to make additional sales to overcome. ChromaChecker eliminates this. So how do you conduct the benchmark? For large format, which we're covering this week, we make it as easy as possible. So ideally you have one form, pre-made PDF template to accommodate the imaging size. And we have targets labeled across the sheet. So there's A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, and these targets are both a normal aperture target to be read with like an I1 or something similar, and a large aperture target. So if you have an I1 Pro Plus or you have an X, you can read these large aperture targets with this same form. And each target is barcoded. So if you have a barcode reader with Capture, which came with your starter kit, if you guys bought a starter kit, or if you're going to buy a starter kit, you just, before you measure the target you're measuring, you zap it with the barcode reader, it populates the position in Capture. So then when you scan it, you can later go in and say, hey, compare A1 with E4, which would be the opposite corners of the sheet, to see what the variation is across the sheet. Or you could say, compare A1 on sheet 1 and A1 on sheet 100 to see what the variation or the repeatability is through the print run. Or A1 through A1 from 3 weeks from now to see the reproducibility of this target. So we're automating this ability to make it easy for you to check these variations in terms of the print. So we've got this 60 by 48 form online. We also have a 60 by 32 inch form online. And then we have all these components. So you'll see we have a profile target, we have the contrast resolution, we have the phenomenal E factor exercise, we have the G7 verifier with the current QR code. So if you run this form and it actually passes G7, you could actually submit the form for G7 alignment with ID Alliance for compliance. All these capabilities are built in here. And this kind of talks about the form. Um, and then, of course, the steps are determine the imaging area of your printing device. If you have a billboard size printing device, I wouldn't make a PDF billboard size. I would use maybe um, uh, four of these single page forms and put them in opposite corners of that billboard size printer so that you can then start measuring that way and compare them and really see what the consistency is. And ideally, you'll print through your existing workflow or whatever the vendor's existing workflow is, which ideally you'll want to know what that is. You'll measure these strips in using capture, or we've had such industry excitement about this. A number of consultants like Tim Quinn and myself and Pierre are all willing to do measurements for our customers. So you can send them to us. We'll measure them for you to help offload the work on you. You'll be able to see how it is. You'll be able to upload the data to your ChromaChecker account so you can see these numbers to make good buying decisions in terms of your printing process. And then the long-term implications of a benchmark is being able to compare any print technology, not only page to page, but over time. Compare what is the consistency and accuracy of my printer over time. And here I've got three printers. I've got a KM1, which is the dark blue, an Epson, which is the light blue, and a ColorPress, which is the pink. And you can see the E factor numbers are on the left, and the Konica Minolta KM1 press and the Epson are like neck and neck at sub 2 E factor for the most part. Now, this is all real live customer data. Now, you'll see that Epson starts migrating north up to a 3 E factor. And remember, for G7 color space compliance, you need to be under a 3 for proofing. As the Epson gets up to a 3, that's when you know it's time to reprofile. And by reprofiling the printer, the Epson came down to like a 1 E factor, and it stayed there a little bit, and then it jumped up a little bit for whatever reason. ChromaChecker can track what those reasons are. Is it temperature, humidity in the Epson, or nozzles clogged? All these things. So long-term implication of using ChromaChecker to check the sellability of your printers over time and understand what the accuracy is key. And we have this tool to allow you to upload if you have existing measurement data, or once you start doing benchmarks and you don't own ChromaChecker, you can actually use this link, which I'm going to go to compare not only how close your printer is hitting Grackle, but more importantly, how close is printer A printing to printer B. So if you're looking at buying a digital press or a large format press and you already have, let's say, an Inca, you want to know how close this new digital press is printing to the Inca. I have an example here of my Inca is set at 4.6 to Grackle. So again, the green dot is Grackle, and the Inca is 4.6, and the Zycon I'm looking at buying is 5.6, but to one another, they're 8.6 different. That's a significant difference. Now, ChromaChecker puts his warning on and it says, hey, the difference between the used substrates is greater than 2. It's 6.6. Remember, paper is the fifth color in 4-color printing. So the fact that the paper's off by this much, we can't really judge that the Zycon is this different from the Inca because the paper's making the difference. So you can use ChromaChecker's best match function in our substrate inspector to find a better substrate for the Zycon to match the Inca or the Inca to match the Zycon. Once the paper line's more, you can redo this comparison and see really how close these two printers align. So ChromaChecker really takes this beyond any other solution that I've ever seen, and gives you the ability to know if the print is correct. Now, what I'm going to do is show you using, I just clicked on the link. This is the ChromaChecker site. And I'm just going to grab on, let's say, 4 measurement files that were, actually, I'm going to go 5 measurement files that were prepped from 5 different companies for G7 qualification. And here you see immediately these 5 files come in, and the E factors are 3.9, 4, 3.9, 2.2, and 2.5. And I can come in and I can say, okay, what's the difference between this 3.9 and this 3.9? So they're both 3.9 to grackle. So they're both 3.9 rings away from the bullseye. But I'm going to ask, how different are they from one another? And actually, those were the same file because they're 0.0. So let's take this 3.9 and this 4, compare those, and these are 5.2. So 5.2, again, you're crossing your fingers that that customer's expectations are more than 5.2 E factor for them to accept this. So very powerful capability that you can go in and assess your uh, printer you're looking at purchasing against your existing printers. So in summary, understand what your print capabilities are and know this before you purchase. This process is scientifically sound. It allows you to base the PO on demonstrated results and hold the installers accountable. And then you'll want to keep checking this printer over time to ensure precision and accuracy, to ensure you don't have waste, you don't have customer rejections. And before you bring any printer in, you should go through this benchmark policy. The vendor will do the work. They want to sell you the printer. So have them prove to you that this printer will dovetail nicely into your existing framework of printing devices so that you have flexibility to share workloads between the printers. And you don't have to cross your fingers that the color is going to be rejected. So using the ChromaChecker registry also to find companies to offload work too. So let's say you've got a printer that's at capacity. You don't have enough work to support two printers yet, but you want to offload this to someone else who has ChromaChecker. Using the project function in ChromaChecker, you can find who else has a Indigo Series 4 and that their E-factor is in line with what your E-factor is. And then you publish the project to them, which gives them the print specifications to hit. They hit it at the given price that they quoted you, and then automatically give you back the data showing you that the print that they made meets your expectations and will again match the printers that you already have, and you're good to go. So, very exciting topic here, guys. Hope that you stay with us. I see a question did come in, and it's asking about SCCA, which is substrate corrected color aims. Can ChromaChecker support SCCA when it's importing data? And the answer is yes, of course it can. So let's go in and let's actually show it. So I'm going to go into my ChromaChecker account, and you'll see here SCCA is an option. It's on or off. And in this option, it's on. In this option, it's off. Now, he also asked, if the data came in with it off, can you recalculate? And you know what? I'm going to ask our AI assistant about this. Can I calculate data to SCCA after it's been imported? So I said, well, never asked it before. It's always interesting to see what it's going to say. And it says, yes, you can recalculate data to SCCA after it has been imported. And how to do it? Go to Print Inspector, select the relevant device and track where the data was imported. In the track settings, ensure SCCA is on, and the system will correct. Select the measurements you want to recalculate. In the historical data will be marked with an exclamation point, and click recalculate. So let's do that. This track has SCCA off, so I'm going to go into it and I'm going to turn it on like it said to do, save the changes like it said to do, and now you see the exclamation point on these files. So I'm going to go in and click on just 3 of them. I'll say recalculate. Recalculate. It's now recalculating the data, and the gray exclamation point is off. So now these 3 files have been recalculated with SCCA to the given reference condition. That's how easy it is. So again, another play on the artificial intelligence module. We really want to hear from you in terms of how that works for you. I hope this was informative, and thank you. And please stay tuned for next month's uh, second Tuesday session. Thank you all.